Welcome to the deep dive. We're here again to take that pile of source material you send over, articles, notes, all of it, and really boil it down to what you absolutely need to know.
Yeah, think of us as your filter. We cut through all the extra stuff to get you straight to the core insights, maybe find some of those aha moments that make it all click.
And today, we're tackling something that sounds, well, incredibly simple, but the sources suggest it packs a huge punch. We're talking about the hashtag 5-second rule.
That's right. And our material today is pretty focused. It comes from a section that answers the most common questions people have about this rule, what it is, how it actually works.
Okay, so our mission then is to really unpack this. Figure out what the rule is, how you do it, why it's got that name, and, the big question. How can this simple thing actually help change things in your life? We're sticking strictly to the sources you gave us.
Sounds good.
All right, let's just jump right in. What exactly is the hashtag 5-second rule, according to the material?
Okay, so at its heart, the sources define it as a really simple tool. It's backed by research, they say, and it's based on metacognition, designed for changing behavior, both right now and for the long haul.
Metacognition. Okay, that sounds a bit academic. How do they break that down in simple terms?
They explain it pretty straightforwardly, actually. In this context, metacognition is basically a technique to kind of beat your brain.
Beat your brain. I like that.
Yeah. It's about getting conscious control over your thoughts and actions, especially when your brain's automatic default responses might be holding you back,
Yeah.
The rule is just a way to interrupt those patterns.
Okay, beat your brain. I'm in. So if it's a tool, how do you physically use it? What are the steps?
Super simple steps, which is why it seems to work so well.
Mm-hmm.
The material says you use it the instant you feel that urge, that instinct to act on a goal.
Like a little spark.
Exactly, that spark. Or, and this is just as critical the moment you feel yourself hesitating about something you know you probably should be doing.
That pause. That should I or shouldn't I moment.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Right then, you physically count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Out loud or in your head.
Doesn't matter. The sources imply. The key is the backward counting. They stress this specific 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 because it does a couple of things at once.
Okay.
One, it distracts your brain. It pulls your focus away from the worries, the excuses, the fears that are already starting to bubble up. Two, it kind of interrupts that mental chatter and focuses your attention on the counting itself.
Okay, so you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then what?
Then, the crucial part. As soon as you hit 1, you move. You take physical action.
Immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah.
The material really hammers this home. The counting and the moving are both actions. You're actively doing something instead of getting stuck in your head. You're training yourself to act when your habit might be to freeze or overthink.
So it's like creating a new pathway, interrupting the old thinking habit.
Precisely. And the backwards count, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, is specifically designed to be a trigger to go. It works because, well, when you hit 1, there's nowhere else to count. You've reached the end. Yeah, the sources give this example of a guy, Trent, who tried counting forwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He found that when he got to 5, he could just keep going. 6, 7.
Huh. Yeah, I can see that.
But counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, creates this definite endpoint. A launch pad. At 1, you move.
A personal launch sequence. Makes total sense. Which naturally leads to the name. Why the hashtag 5-second rule? I mean, apart from the obvious ones people know, like dropping food or a basketball clock.
Yeah, it's a fair question, and the sources say it comes up a lot. The story behind it is actually pretty spontaneous.
Oh, yeah.
The creator first used it one morning. She'd seen a NASA rocket launch on TV the night before, and the thought just popped into her head, I'll just launch myself out of bed like a rocket. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown came naturally from that.
Wow.
The number 5 itself wasn't based on any specific science at that moment. It just felt like the right amount of time, and the name stuck.
So it wasn't some deep calculation about how long we hesitate.
Not initially, no. But here's where it gets interesting and connects back to what you mentioned. The sources point out this really cool parallel with other 5-second rules.
Like the food on the floor.
Yeah, or the basketball shot clock, maybe a game show timer, even that quick test to see if the pavement's too hot for a dog's paws. What do they all have in common?
A 5-second time limit.
Right. And crucially, they all require some kind of physical movement or immediate action within that short window.
Huh. Never thought of it that way. That's a neat connection.
Isn't it? The material suggests the name works really well because physical movement is also the core of this rule. Moving changes your physiology, and your mind tends to follow your body.
So the name kind of taps into that existing familiarity, makes it feel universal.
That's the idea. It feels intuitive because we already have these other concepts of 5-second action windows.
Okay, this makes sense. Count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then move. But it does sound an awful lot like that famous Nike slogan, just do it. How is this different? Or is it?
That's a really common comparison, and the sources tackle it head on. They make a clear distinction.
Okay.
Just do it, they say, is a concept. It's the what. It tells you the goal, overcome hesitation, take action.
Right.
The hashtag 5-second rule, on the other hand, is presented as a tool. It's the how. It's the practical method you use to actually make yourself do the thing.
Ah, okay. So one's the idea, the other's the actual push button mechanism.
Exactly. And the sources even break down why just do it is so powerful, focusing on that word just.
Just.
Yeah, that word just acknowledges something fundamental about us. We nearly always pause and think and wrestle with our feelings right before doing something that feels hard or uncertain.
Like deciding whether to join that pickup game or pushing for one more rep at the gym or, looking at the rain and thinking maybe skip the run today.
Precisely those moments the sources describe. We hesitate. Just taps into that universal feeling, acknowledges it, and tells us we're not alone in that little internal battle.
Yeah.
It encourages us to be bigger than the fear or the excuse.
Makes sense.
But the rule.
Yeah.
The rule is what you use when you're standing there wrestling with it, and you need that concrete push. It's your personal 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 ignition sequence when no one else is around to yell, just do it at you.
Okay, got it. Now, about that 5-second window. Is it like a hard and fast rule for everyone?
5 seconds exactly. What if I hesitate for way longer, or maybe my excuses pop up instantly?
Great question. The sources definitely talk about this. They explain there is this critical window of opportunity for everyone. It's that space between the moment you have the instinct, the idea to act or change, and the moment your brain really kicks in to shut it down.
And the brain starts working against you pretty fast.
Instantly, yeah. But the sources suggest that the full-on assault, the barrage of thoughts and excuses, usually takes a few seconds to fully form and gain control. That seems to be why 5 seconds works as a general guideline for many people in many simulations.
But it's not set in stone. You can tweak it. Absolutely. The material encourages personalizing it. They share an example of someone named Angela. For her, sometimes decisions trigger deeper fears, and 5 seconds would just stretch into 50 seconds, or even 500 seconds of paralysis.
Wow.
So she learned to adjust. She started treating 0 as this point of no return, like her brain would self-destruct if she didn't move by then. It created more urgency for her in those tougher moments.
And what about going shorter, less than 5 seconds?
Yep, that too. There's this story about Matt, who was training for one of those Tough Mudder obstacle races. He noticed his brain was super quick at coming up with excuses not to train.
Relatable.
Totally. So he deliberately shortened his window to just 3 seconds. He actually texted the author, saying something like, in 5 seconds, I can make up at least 2 excuses. In 3 seconds, my mind has already pushed the first button on my phone to move the ball ahead.
So he forced himself to start the action, like physically putting on his shoe within 3 seconds.
Exactly, before the excuses could even fully form.
That really connects with the brain science bit mentioned in the sources, doesn't it? The longer you sit and think about doing something hard, the less likely you actually are to do it.
Precisely. Your brain is incredibly efficient at rationalizing inaction. It wants comfort and safety. To break that cycle, the sources say you have to move faster than your own excuses. The rule gives you that immediate trigger to beat the excuses to the punch.
Okay, so we get what it is, how it works, how to maybe adjust it. The sources say people use this for literally thousands of things. Can we break that down? What are the main categories of use?
Yeah, they helpfully group all those thousands of uses into 3 broad categories. The first one is using the rule to change your behavior.
Okay, changing behavior. What does that cover? Give me some examples.
Yeah. Think about finally starting that workout plan you keep putting off, or breaking the habit of hitting snooze 5 times every morning. Yeah. Or maybe stopping yourself before you grab that extra cookie you don't need. It's about gaining self-awareness and self-control, being more intentional about your actions, both towards yourself and how you interact with others.
Got it. Behavior change. What's number 2?
The second category is using it to act with everyday courage.
Everyday courage. It sounds less dramatic than like running into a burning building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about huge heroic acts. It's about finding the courage for the smaller things in daily life that still feel new or scary or uncertain.
Like what, specifically?
Well, the sources mention things like using it to quiet that voice of self-doubt so you can finally pursue a passion project, or pushing yourself to speak up and share an idea in a meeting.
Hmm.
Or maybe volunteering for a task that feels a bit outside your comfort zone, starting that creative thing you've been thinking about, or even stepping up into a leadership role when you feel hesitant. It's about mustering courage for those daily moments of potential growth or vulnerability.
Okay, makes sense. Everyday courage. And the third category?
The third one, and the sources really emphasize this as potentially the most powerful application, is using the rule to control your mind.
Whoa. Control your mind, that sounds big.
It is big. This is about using the 5-4-3-2-1 GO sequence to interrupt negative thought spirals, to stop yourself from endlessly worrying about something, to break the habit of feeling anxious or fearful about certain things, and instead consciously choosing to shift your focus towards thoughts or activities that are more positive, productive, or joyful, rather than just getting stuck spinning your wheels mentally.
That does sound incredibly powerful, but it still feels almost too simple, you know? How can one little counting trick work on all these deep things, habits, courage, negative thoughts?
It's a valid point, and the sources address it. They argued that the simplicity is actually why it works. Our brains apparently have all these built-in kind of tricky ways to keep us from changing or doing things that feel uncertain.
Tricky ways.
Yeah, they mention concepts. Researchers talk about things like cognitive biases, the paradox of choice, where too many options paralyze us, something called the psychological immune system that tries to maintain the status quo, the spotlight effect, where we overestimate how much others notice us. Basically, the moment you have an impulse to change or act differently, your brain often works against you to stop you.
So your own brain tries to sabotage you.
In a protective sense, yeah. It sort of tricks you into thinking things through way too much, but often that thinking just becomes a trap, a loop that prevents action.
Right.
Your brain is fundamentally wired, the sources say, to avoid stuff that feels uncertain, scary, or new. And guess what? Change almost always involves those things.
True.
And this resistance, this hesitation reflex, it happens automatically and incredibly fast. So the argument is you have to act faster than that automatic stop signal.
And the 5-4-3-2-1 gives you that speed by forcing action instead of thought.
Exactly. It interrupts the hesitation pattern before it fully takes hold. And the sources also note that, while simple, the rule actually leverages a bunch of well-established psychological principles.
Like what?
Things like building a bias toward action, increasing your internal locus of control, that feeling you're in charge of your life, using it as a starting ritual, which is known to help initiate tasks, and tapping into the progress principle, which is the motivation boost we get from making even small steps forward.
Okay. That adds some weight. But still, applying to habits and courage and mindset, how does one rule hit all those different targets?
This is maybe the core insight from the source material on this question. The reason it works across the board is that it's fundamentally only working on one thing.
Which is it?
You, or more specifically, the way you stop yourself. The sources argue that we all tend to stop ourselves from changing, from acting, from doing the things we intend to do in the exact same way every single time.
How?
We hesitate. Then we overthink. And in doing so, we lock ourselves in what they vividly call mental jail.
Mental jail. Wow. So that split-second hesitation is the universal culprit.
It's the trigger, yeah. That moment of hesitation, however brief, sends a little stress signal to your brain, like a tiny warning flare. Your brain interprets that pause as, maybe something's wrong here. Maybe this is risky. And its default protective response is to put the brakes on, to shut down action. The sources literally say this is how we're wired to fail when it comes to making changes.
That's a strong statement.
It is. Think about the difference, they suggest, between things you don't hesitate on, pouring your morning coffee, pulling on your jeans, switching on the TV, calling your best friend. You just do them. There's no debate.
Right.
But then think about hesitating before making that uncomfortable sales call, or replying to that tricky email, or going to talk to someone new. That hesitation itself tells your brain, warning, warning. And the longer you then stand there thinking about the sales call, the less likely you become to actually pick up the phone.
And we might not even notice we're hesitating half the time. It's just automatic.
Totally. The sources say it's often a deeply ingrained, unconscious habit for most people. They share a quote from someone named Tim, who used the rule and had this realization. He said it helped him break these formerly embedded thought patterns he didn't even know he had about doing certain things.
And what happened?
He started just doing them, using the 5-4-3-2-1. And he found himself thinking, why was I ever afraid of this? It's not like the world was going to end if I made that call or didn't. It allowed him to safely go for it.
So the rule helps you catch the hesitation and, like, reframe it.
Exactly. That's the key shift. Instead of seeing hesitation as a stop sign, the rule trains you to see it as a push moment, a signal to act. Every time you catch yourself pausing, that's your cue. The 5-second window has opened. Time to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and push yourself forward, override the excuses.
It's bigger than the excuses.
Right. And they even mention this guy, Art, who apparently hung the numbers 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 physically on his office wall. Just as a constant visual reminder, see the numbers, recognize the moment, push forward.
That's a cool practical tip. Okay, so it helps you push through in the moment. But does doing this repeatedly actually lead to lasting change? Or is it just a constant battle, using the rule every single time?
This is where the sources get really exciting, I think. They argue it's not just about winning the battle in the moment. By consistently using the rule, you actually start to weaken and potentially even destroy that whole internal resistance system over time.
Destroy it? Really? How does that work?
Well, the thinking goes like this. Those patterns, worrying, doubting yourself, feeling afraid, hesitating, they aren't fixed parts of who you are. According to the sources, they're just habits. Habits of thought and behavior that you've repeated so often, they've become automatic.
So if self-sabotage is just a habit,
Then you can break it, just like any other habit. The sources bring up the golden rule of habits, which basically says you can't just eliminate a bad habit, you have to replace the old behavior pattern with a new one.
okay. So how does the hashtag 5-second rule fit into that? What's the replacement pattern?
The countdown itself. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ago. That sequence becomes your new automatic response to the trigger, which is the hesitation or the instinct to act. Instead of the old pattern, hesitate, overthink, retreat, you install a new pattern. Hesitate, count, act.
So the countdown becomes a kind of starting ritual.
Exactly. That's the term they use. It's a starting ritual that interrupts the old, unhelpful default pattern and triggers a new, positive, action-oriented one.
So if you do this enough, you're essentially rewiring your brain's default response.
That's the really thrilling implication the sources put forward. By mastering this simple rule, by using it consistently, you can literally start to reprogram your mind. You teach it new default pathways.
So instead of automatically defaulting to worry or hesitation or fear,
You start to automatically default to acting with courage, with intention. And the sources emphasize that over time, all those small 5-second decisions, those little acts of pushing forward, they build on each other. They create real, authentic confidence and pride, the kind that comes from actually doing the things you set out to do, day after day.
wow, that's genuinely exciting. The idea that habits, mindset, maybe even parts of your personality we think are fixed are actually flexible.
Yeah, the sources call the potential absolutely thrilling. The idea is that you really can change your default mental settings one 5-second decision at a time. And those tiny shifts, practiced consistently, can lead to massive transformations in who you are and how you experience your life.
It really all circles back to that moment of decision, doesn't it? Changing your decisions changes your life, and it often takes that spark of courage, maybe prompted by 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, to make a different decision.
Beautifully put. And the sources leave us with one final, quite provocative thought related to that. Something to really chew on after this deep dive.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's simply this. If you have the courage to start, you have the courage to succeed.